All right. So, sorry for my congestion here. Battling a wicked cold and some allergies. Um, but we're going to shoot this video anyway because I have to get it done. So, what I have in the vise here is a size 14 dry fly. I'm using a lightning strike here, NW3 size 14, one extra long. You could go as small as like a 16, as large as a 12. That's about the size of this mayfly. What we're going to be tying here is a drake imitation of sorts. My thread is uni thread 80 iron gray, and let's just get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my thread about 3 bodkin widths behind the eye, 2.5 to 3. Some keef on there. Yeah, it's right in there. And I'm just going to wrap back with touching turns. And you can take this tag out whenever you're ready. And my fingers aren't going to work to snip it off, so we'll trim it. Dry fingers, dry throat. Hey, you know how it goes. It's springtime. So we're going to take this thread back to about the barb. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in a dubbing loop. And now what I want to do is I want to angle that up on the top side. So if you can see that there, we've got it on the top side. And I'm just going to put a couple extra wraps in, but you don't want to go past the barb, or at least you don't want to go into the bend, I should say. And we're just going to let that hang off the back side. Okay. Next, we need some pheasant tail. You can do this in a variety of colors: brown, rusty brown, a darker brown, black. I'm just going to use the old El Natural here, and I'm going to pull 3 fibers off to the side of the stem, and I want to line them up so that they're on the side of the stem and they're even. That's kind of the key, is that they're even there. If they're separating from you and you can't get them back together, you can lick them to get them to go back together. Now I'm going to pinch with my left thumb, left index. I'm going to pull the stem away with my right thumb, right index, and ultimately my right wrist. Just like so. And I'm going to come in and I want to trim out all this stuff here. We don't want that. So you should be left with 3 fibers that are even, or the tips are even or pretty close. Next, what we want to do is we want to get a distance. And I know a lot of the new versions of dry flies, they have these shorter tails. I'm not sure why they do that. Kelly Gallup has a good video explaining why he doesn't understand why people do that. But anyway, you want these tails sort of long, because mayflies have some long tails. Like they can be longer than the body. So I'm going to measure this up from the front side of the hook, or the front side of the eye, to the bend of the hook. And I'm just going to transfer that distance right on back so that my pinch point is going to land right on top of my tie-in point, or where my thread is. And next I'm going to do just a couple of loose wraps over. You can use the pinch wrap technique here if you want, absolutely. Basically that's just where you pinch the thread as it comes around and then you tighten up. So I'm going to put a couple loose wraps in, and I want to get these guys situated right on top. I'm going to have to unclip that, it's in my way, or at least loosen it. There we go. So that it's right on top. And what we want to do is kind of separate these tail fibers a little bit so that they sit in a 3-prong position. So one off the center, one off the left, and one off the right. Okay, and then once you kind of have that, you can gently pinch again, and we're going to start with touching turns, gently and loosely wrapping forward. You don't want to wrap too tight here, because what's going to end up happening is you're going to split all your work you just did. It's going to tighten down, it's going to crimp everything down, and you're going to lose your tail. So as you move forward, you can progressively get tighter with your wraps to lock it all into place. Again, sorry for my raspy, stuffy voice. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. And we're going to take that up to the original starting point. Now, this original starting point, this is basically the 1/3 position. Okay, so if you were to start your thread behind the eye, wrap back halfway, and then wrap forward half of that distance, that gets you to roughly the 1/3 of the fly. So this is where the thorax area is going to be of the fly, right in here. And this is going to be the abdomen. Okay, so now that we have that, what you want to do is you want to make sure that these fibers are actually lined out where they should be. And what I mean by that is sometimes when you tie them in, they'll get crossed over one another. So this one should be over here, and this one should be over here. So just take your time and look at them to make sure that they're popped open where they need to be, or where they're laying, where those fibers are laying. And so we want to keep these fibers open, and this is where our dubbing loop comes in. You can use this technique on nymphs as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this dubbing loop. Let me turn the vise to the side. We're going to use this dubbing, if I can get the damn thing. It's going all wonky on me now. There we go. That's why you want to have it at a little pendulum, just like so you can split these tails just like that. And we're going to lift up in between all of the fibers. You may have to pull it through slowly, and you'll see that they're starting to move and bend when you do that. And that's okay. You can just kind of finagle them with your fingers and work them down to get them to this point. You don't want them to ride too high. We want them to kind of sit even as possible with the hook shank. This is too high. This is going to stop your fly from landing correctly in the water. But we can correct that as we tie it in back down. Now, if you're having a hard time doing that, what you can also do is create the dubbing loop. And at the tip here of the thread, you can actually just take your scissors, cut that in half, and just do one side at a time, so that you're only bringing up the one. See, now I've fouled it all up again. But you're only going to bring either your far side or your near side up at one time. So you can do whatever works better for you. Typically, when you're first starting out trying to split tails like this, it's easier to do the far side first, tie in a couple wraps, then come back, pull the near side tag forward, tie it in a couple wraps, and then work back. So, but what we want to do is we want to have the tails split open, kind of like so. And the more torque you put on this thread, the more they're going to split open. You don't want to put too much torque on it, because we want it to lay flat. So once you have it about like so, you can put a wrap over and a wrap over. Now this guy's pretty much locked into place up front, but you have the flexibility of dropping your tail down in the back. So you want to make all your adjustments as needed. And then also, as you're winding back, by the time you get to your third or fourth wrap, you can cut this tag off, because it's just going to get in your way. And that's done and out of your way. There's actually a neat trick where you can tie it in all at the back. Once you get more comfortable, you can wrap back, pull it over, right? So everything's at the aft of the fly. trim only the one side of your tag, so you have your one strand hanging out, and use that as your rib. You'll kind of see what I'm saying in a minute, although I trimmed that one out. But so another thing you can do, which I'll do commonly, is take just a little dab of super glue and put it right down on those fibers right at the butt, just like so, just before I wrap back, so that as I'm wrapping back with tight turns, that glue is starting to set. Whoa. And as it's starting to set, I can make all of my adjustments that I need slowly. So like that one wants to come down. I don't want it to come down. And just one wrap at a time. Now, if you get to this point and they're pulling down, you're too far. You've gone too far to the back of the shank. So you can kind of work those up. You can bring your thread up underneath and pull forward to help lift them up. Because we just want them sitting even. And just take your time working it. It can be a little bit of a tricky method to do this, especially if you've never done it before. And that one just wants to collapse on me. No, that's not your job. It's to stay open. There we go. And it doesn't always work to perfection, but it will the more you play with it. You just don't want to play with it too much, because these will snap off on you, and then you gotta redo your tail. There we go, like so. You want something about like that, so that it's running somewhat level with your hook shank. And you've already got your glue on there, and so that's good. Now you can just bring your thread back forward a couple of turns. We're going to put in a second dubbing loop, and this is where we're going to use. This is what we're going to use for our rib. So just do a second dubbing loop, put a few wraps in, and we're only going to trim the one side. So what I was originally saying is if you tie everything in at the back instead of coming forward when you're pulling your first dubbing loop over, you can tie everything in back here. You can trim the one side and still have this tag without having to put a second dubbing loop in. So you can try that in a future bug. It works well. It takes a little practice though. So I'm just going to wrap back until I'm at the back there. Next, what we want to do is we want to put in the body, which is just going to be some super fine dry fly dubbing. It's in the color of Calibatus, and like most dubbing, we're going to take our dubbing and pinch and pull to get the fibers to line up. These are already lined up pretty well, but it's always good to practice. And now with this being the superfine dry fly dubbing and the woven thread like a uni thread, I don't find the need to wax it as much. You can if you want, if you're more comfortable doing that, or if you're having a problem getting it to stick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lick my left thumb, left index, and I'm going to, in one direction, make just a few twists with my dubbing. I'm going to bring it up to the hook shank and kind of pull, turn, pull, turn. And I'm actually working to the back there if you saw that. That just helps me keep my tail open. And we can adjust the body of the fly in a minute. And now I can work down with my dubbing noodle. And then what I like to do is keep, as I come around, you can kind of see, I'll keep the, I won't use all of my dubbing, or I won't twist all my dubbing on, is what I should say. I won't twist all my dubbing on at one time. And the reason for that is so that if I need more, I can seamlessly add more dubbing to it. And we're just going to, oh, I'm getting a little thick there. We do want to get progressively thicker. But I've got that little lump there that I want to get rid of. So just sometimes you just got to work it. Oh, it just keeps coming around on me like that, and I don't like it at all. There we go. Sometimes you just get that little lump in there and you're like, man, that just doesn't quite look right. So don't be afraid to back it off. And so now that I have just that little bit left and I still have more dubbing to do, now I can come back in with more dub. Approach it the same way. And I can kind of blend the fibers together right here. And just twist it together. And we're going to work this up to where we started our thread. Twist that last little bit in there. And we want to have a little bit of a taper here. Not much, but you do want to have a little bit of a taper here. I'm going to go one more. I feel like that's just shortening out on me just a fuzz. Okay, there we go. Now, if you have a bunch of extra dubbing like that, you can just trim it off like so. And now for our tag that we're going to use for our rib. Now we can just start to wrap it. You can go either direction here. I don't think there's a right or wrong here. What you do want, though, is about 5 turns as you're bringing this guy around. If you're worried about your thread snapping on a strike, I would use just a tiny bit of UV resin on here. If you use super glue or something like that, what's going to happen is it's going to leach into your dubbing and it's going to make it change color. So I'm not sure that I'd want to use that, but you can definitely use some Solar Res here, or Loon, or Gulf, or whatever. Okay, very cool. So now we have our tail, our body, or our abdomen, and our rib. Excuse me. Surprised that's only the first time. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add some wings. And we're going to use some CDC for our wings. And what I've got here is just some, I've just got some dun gray. You can, I mean, obviously you want to, I'm sorry, I'm going through I should have prepped these already and I didn't. But you want to go through and get some decent CDC, looks similar to that. And you're going to want 2 of them. And we're going to, you want to put them so that they're back to back like this, right? Or so that the convex sides are facing apart from one another. Now, if you want to get really crazy, what you can do, because those mayflies, if you really look at them, they've got some just colored wings where they'll have like veins of color running through them. So you could get a separate color. Okay, so like on a drake is usually green. We're just using gray here. But you can get some olive like this, and then split the difference with them, so that you have that gray and olive on the inside or outside, whatever you think looks good. So you have it sitting something like that. I know that's not all lined up, but we're not going to do it lined up. But anyway, that's an option for you if you want to use 2 colors of CDC to make a more colorful wing, make a little fancier fly. And it'll float better. The more CDC you have in there, it's going to float better. So what we want to do is go back to what we just had. So we got our tips like this. They're lined up. Okay, and on this pattern for drakes, you want to have this wing. It's going to extend just a little bit past the bend, the back part of the bend. And so when you figure where that's going to sit out, what you want to do is come forward on your CDC and start drawing things back so that you've got a bigger amount than you actually need. And we're going to draw all the fibers that are towards the base of the stem back so that we expose a middle section of stem. Now we're going to pinch these together, lay them right down on top so that the bare part of the shank is sitting right on top. And here you want to just put 2 loose wraps over, and you want to position your feathers so that they sit just like that. Okay, next you're going to pinch the tips of your CDC with this is left thumb, left index, right thumb, right index, and now I'm just going to lift the feathers up to make kind of a U shape, and I'm going to just gently pull, and take your time doing it because they will move on you. If they do move on you and you don't like it, what you need to do is undo the wraps and redo it. Don't try to pull back in the other direction. You'll mess everything up, including the feather itself, or potentially, and then it's just a waste of CDC. So that you have something about like that. I'm still a little bit long, and my tails came down. That's all right. We'll fix them in a minute. So that you have something about like that. Once you have that, we're going to pinch everything to the hook shank. We're going to just gently pull down and make a few wraps to the back. Make sure everything's adjusted correctly. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift these wings forward, and I'm going to put just 2 wraps underneath. You can actually probably get away with just 1. Kind of adjust everything again where you want it or you need it. The whole goal is here to keep these wings standing up. And then we're going to put 1 more wrap in. I know that seems a little complicated. It's really not too bad. And then we can wrap forward tightly, locking everything into place. You want to make sure you stay about a bodkin width behind the eye when you do that. And now you can come in, and I'll come in with my scissors and just go kind of parallel, or at the same angle, I should say, as the hook eye, and trim that out just like so. And we'll fix that tail, I promise. There we go. You can also use microfibbits here for your tail. They do seem to work a little bit better. They hold their shape a little bit better and everything else. So, excuse me. Anyway, that's your wing. Next, what we're going to use is some medium done hackle. So it's just basically a brown hackle, kind of a medium brown hackle. So if you're coming in off your cape or your feather or whatever, the way I go to size this is because since we already have some buildup here, I'll just actually take the feather to the hook shank and pinch and pull. And now what I'm looking for here is the distance plus a half. and that one's going to be a little short for me. And the reason you want that is you want your fly to land in what's called a 3-prong landing, which means a hackle, shank, or tail, or butt, and your tail. So it keeps your fly popped up at the same angle my hand is laying at if it was sitting on the water. And so this is where a lot of people really struggle with dry flies. Now you can get a hackle gauge and everything, and that's great. They work as a guide. They're not really the wherewithal when it comes to the size of your hackle. See, that one's pretty good right there, about 1.5. Probably should have prepped a little bit more, but hey, you know, you get all Dayquil up and antihistamine up trying to battle these things so you can come in and shoot a video. You know, you just don't think about everything. It's dedication, man. It's dedication. That, and I'm addicted to tying, so don't let me blow too much smoke up your skirt. So anyway, next what we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of clean this up a little bit. You don't want to clean it up right in the front too much because we are going to build a little bit of a head. Now you can use 2 feathers here, or just 1. The more hackle you put up front and the more CDC you use in the wing, the higher it's going to float. So you want to keep that in mind. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to lay this stem down right next to the side of my shank. I'm going to tie this in. 2 wraps going from the right upper front to the lower left back. Now I'm going to reverse that and come from the upper left back to the lower right front twice. And then what that does is it straightens out the stem on your dry fly, like so. And now we can just tie this in. I didn't get that quite as close as I want, so I'm going to actually wrap this back. If your hackle's not touching your CDC in the back there, you want it kind of touching that wing, or you'll have a little gap there. If you do, it's not the end of the world, but you want to try to have that covered up, you know, make your fly look good. And I'm just messing with this here. I like this stem on the side of my hook shank, and it's not playing with me nicely. There we go. And once you get up towards the head, you can trim this little stem out here. Maybe. Come on, play with me. There we go. Now we can just palmer this hackle forward, touching turns. Now if you start to get barbs that shoot out the front like that, just draw them to the back as you come around. And what that does is it forces, your stem forces that hackle to the back. So you can take your time doing this, just like so. Now you can do these in a ton of colors too. You could double this up using, say, like this medium brown dun here and some grizzly hackle to get the speckling for the legs or something if you wanted to. No big deal. Now once you have about a bodkin width left for your head, if you need to, just back some turns off of your thread until you meet up with your hackle. And then what I'll do is I just cross them over and lift up on the hackle, and I just collect as much of that as possible. You're gonna get a couple trapped and come back over another time. Now I've got those guys in there. That thing is in my way. And I'll actually, a lot of times, just pull everything to the back and jump my thread to right behind the hook eye and start wrapping back a little bit. Now you know you've caught the front part of the stem in that little V wedge. If you can kind of see how it's got this like little crazy like mohawk thing going on there, where the stem's shooting to the back, and that works really well. Now if you're brave, you can just snap this off, or you can use your fingernail clippers. I'm going to use my fingernail clippers because it's a video, and if I snap it with my fingers right now, being all, Dayquil'd up, it's going to fail. There's no doubt. I'm shooting a video. It's going to fail. Dayquil video fail. So just like that. Anyway, so next what we're going to do is just grab our whip finisher. You can kind of draw everything to the back and put in 3 or 4 turns. Now you can wet whip here, which is just gluing your thread before you whip finish. Now you don't want your head too big, but you can add a little glue there right onto your thread, and then whip finish, and so you seal it and whip finish all at once, and that's a really good way to do it too. And that fiber is just going to get trapped and it's going to get taken out. Oh, I'm going to pick up another one. I got to work to the back there, or my head's not going to sit right. So there we go. Let me get some. Oh, come on. Man, they're hackle pliers, man. I got a pair of hackle pliers that really gets in there and grabs these single guys and just rips them out. And I don't know where it is. So, next, once that's all done, we can bring everything forward. Just like so. You can fix your tail. Again, if you need to, here at the very end, to keep that tail sitting even with your hook shank, you can take a little drop of glue and add it to the very end there. So, anyhow, that's a CDC wing Drake imitation. If you like the video, I always appreciate it if you subscribe. Give it a thumbs up if you like the video, and share it as well. You can also check us out over at Fly Tying for Beginners on Facebook. Answer the questions, and that's your golden ticket in. We do all kinds of fun stuff over there. We're adding stuff as much as possible. Got fly swaps going on, classes going on, bunch of tutorials and lives, a lot of fun stuff over there. So if you haven't checked us out, we'd love to have you over there too. Other than that, give it a shot, change up your colors. You can do other mayflies this way too. So I hope you enjoyed it, and happy tying. We'll see you later.